Hello, folks. Dave here again, and this year's King Con has come and gone. It's the annual board game and gaming convention that takes place here in Kentville, Nova Scotia, at the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. They have like a community hall that you can rent out for events, and it's my third time attending, second time running games there, and yeah, I decided to talk about sort of how the weekend went, and how I was feeling going into things, how I feel coming out of things, and the fact that I already have next year's games figured out, which was not that didn't take very long. So this is just a little local convention put on by it's like a board gaming group primarily. Though when they do like the King Con, they do have spaces for miniatures games, and war strategy games, and role playing games. I'm also in the process of getting my voice back, so it was actually really busy this year. Like it was last year had quite a few people there on Saturday, but Sunday was pretty dead. So just trying to speak over just the din of sound around you, just by people just playing games. Nobody was being overly loud, but when you've got 30 tables of people playing board games or running role playing games or strategy games or things like that, there's just going to be noise generated from it. And my buddies stayed over after bringing us back from the convention. We ordered pizza and watched some Rick and Morty and stuff. And I was losing my voice pretty bad. It's starting to go here now. So to try to counteract it, I did bring down a nice, refreshing Pepsi Zero, which we'll be delving into as we go. There we go. That's pretty good stuff. So I was going to do a video sort of chronicling things leading up to it, but unlike last year, I didn't actually run anything that wasn't already pre-written. So last year I ran a D&D 5e adventure that was sort of an update of one of the Age of Worms scenarios, with the lizard folk attacking the small keep. And for that one, I had to rewrite the scenario for 5e. I had to draw the maps for everything, and it was a lot more involved in terms of prep work. So I just never really but I never recorded the making of or the behind the scenes video. And I was going to do that this year, but then I kind of realized well, I'm just running pre-written stuff, so the video would consist of me gathering the materials and just showing me reading the scenarios a little bit. So that didn't really come to fruition. And last year I had people ask why I didn't take video of the actual games being run, or video of the convention. And the basic reason for that is that I don't like recording stuff in public. I don't like recording things where there's people whose faces are shown, who may or may not want to be on video. When I went to Money in the Bank in 2024, the WWE pay-per-view, I was going to record a whole travel thing. I had me leaving the house, the plane taking off, showing my hotel room. Actually, no, I didn't have a hotel room for that. That was Elimination Chamber. But landing the plane, and I was going to take video of the Superstore where they were selling the replica belts and all that stuff. And I found just subconsciously, if I was moving around, I had the camera pointed at the floor because I didn't want to get people's faces in. And even when I was just trying to look at not just the belts, I just didn't feel comfortable with that, right? So not everybody wants to be on video. Not everybody wants their faces on YouTube and stuff. So, or even necessarily their voices or anything to do with them being online. So out of just respect for that in general, I don't record video. I meant to take a couple pictures of the setup. But once I got my games set up both times, my groups were there more or less, so I was ready to start running. So this year, I ran the scenario from the original Starfinder beginner box for first edition, but I used the second edition rule set for it, and that was my Saturday game. And I forget what the name of the scenario was. But I also ran, on Sunday, I ran Alien, the starter set here, Hope's Last Day. and that'll help when it gets time to do like the actual proper review, like the Starter Set Saturday review of the Alien game. And yes, I will be getting back into Starter Set Saturdays. Hopefully next week, I'll have my Star Trek. I think Star Trek Adventure Second Edition that won the last poll, and I'll see what we're doing from there. I think it's the Keep on the Borderlands after that. So I got the next couple mapped out. But anyway, but I did actually get to run the set, which was really really cool. Leading into it, because I knew I was just doing pre-written stuff. I didn't really do a ton of prep this year. Like, I read through the scenarios, and I was going to convert the Starfinder one into second edition, but a lot of the things that were in here weren't in the Alien core, or didn't even really have good level appropriate equivalents in the like the Pathfinder Monster Core 1 and 2, or even like the Bestiaries for the pre remastered version of that. So, but looking at it, like, well, you know, the stats are pretty simplified in this version. Like, they're not even like full Starfinder first edition stats, so they're pretty simplistic. So I just kind of modified the hit points to give some monsters a bit more staying power. Like, the goblins went from 6 hit points to 10. And I think I doubled a couple of creatures' hit points, like the dragon at the end, and stuff like that, just to sort of give them a bit more, staying power. Because some of the abilities and some of the things that you could do in Pathfinder Second Edition or Starfinder Second Edition is a bit more powerful than what you could do in Starfinder First Edition. So that's just kind of what I went with, and I looked through things at the end there. I actually had minis set aside for the characters, and the pre-gen characters that I used were actually from the Murder in Metal City, because for whatever reason I can't find second edition Starfinder pre-gen characters that weren't part of the playtest. So enough stuff had changed from the playtest to the final rules that I wouldn't want to use those versions. So I just used the Murder in Metal City ones, and like the stuff that had like the character's background, the sheet that had like, you know, how the character's connection to the murdered professor in the Murder in Metal City. I just told them, it's like, okay, like, kind of ignore like the background stuff, but what that page had was their stats broken down almost like a creature from the Alien core, and it gave page references for all of their like class abilities or feats and racial abilities. So it ended up being helpful from that perspective. And then with the Alien game, everything was in the box, so I didn't really have to worry too much about that. So yeah, it was pretty good. The night before, so the Friday night, there was the Alien 1979 Alien movie was being shown at the small local theater there in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. They're doing like a whole thing throughout the summer, sort of like some sci-fi movies. They are doing, like, most of the ones I'm not overly interested in. Like, I know people won't like this, but I never really liked The Fifth Element. I never really got into that one. Was never really a fan of, like, Donnie Darko, which I know is not really sci-fi, but it's kind of like a psychological thing going on there. I never really liked that movie either. I rented it, and I just kind of stopped watching it. But they are going to be showing Blade Runner, which might be kind of cool to go to, so I might try to organize something for that, depending on what day it is and what friends are available. But yeah, it was really cool to see Alien on a movie theater screen with like the movie theater sound. Like, the sound was pretty good. Like, the screen was kind of small, but it was still a pretty awesome experience for that. But anyway, it actually got me really hyped to run the Alien role-playing game, which is going to be like the 2 days later. But yeah, so as far as the Starfinder one went, the thing that I was a bit worried about going into like the con, and I do suffer from social anxiety like really badly. It's especially like with things where I'm interacting with people that I've never met before, or that I mostly haven't met before. It kind of becomes overwhelming at times. Like, there were online games that I was invited to play, which I did appear in, but like I couldn't make it to like the first session, like the session 0, the character creation stuff, because I was just so like, my nerves had gotten so bad. Like, I felt like I was going to be sick, and I had to cancel. And even with like my current online gaming group, we're going through like Savage Tide, which we've been playing forever. And I've been running games for these guys for years, right? But if we go through an extended break, like when I broke my leg, or just like the summer in general, like I get really anxious about restarting things. And I'm not gonna lie, there's been one or two times where it's like I had to cancel. I just had to reschedule because, like, again, my nerves started like really flaring up, and I started getting like really anxious, and had trouble like breathing, and it was bad, right? So, not, I mean, it didn't happen a ton with the online group, but it has happened more than once. So I do get like really bad social anxiety. Like last year, I ran the first game, my D&D 5e game, and then the next day, for Pathfinder, I was actually really ready to. I actually had an email drafted about how I was like, sorry, I can't make it. Something's come up family wise. Like I was just trying to make an excuse to not go. And I remember, like, I stopped myself from sending it, and I deleted it, and I made myself go. And that game was awesome. Like, I had a really great time with that one. So, but I was starting to feel kind of the same way. And when the sign-up lists went live on their website, my games filled out pretty quickly. So last year, the Pathfinder one was one of the last games to fill out. The D&D one, I think, filled out relatively quickly, but the Pathfinder one was like one of the last ones to actually get filled. This year, my games were amongst the first to get filled. And what made it even more kind of stressful for me is that they were both filled by the same 4 names in both. Although I kind of recognized a couple of the names, so that helped a little bit. Because like I think I remember they used to go to like my friend's game store back when he used to own it. So I had a little bit of familiarity with a couple of the people, sort of, kinda. But it's like at the same time, it's like it was the same 4 people both days. So my main concern was if I screwed up running the Starfinder game, like they're not going to show up for Alien, right? They're not going to bother, they're not going to want to show up, and like, and that was a really like serious concern that I had. Like I was, again, really stressing out over it, especially like up until the moment that everybody sat down and we started, the game. And once we started getting into like the game stuff, I started getting more comfortable, and then by the end of it, it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure they'll be back. Only one player didn't make it back the next day, but it was due to the fact that we're not as young as we used to be, and staying up late and not getting a ton of sleep is not conducive to going out and doing big social events. Like I had hardly had any sleep the entire weekend, and I was like very sympathetic towards him there. So we'll start with the Starfinder one here. I'll just get the get the adventure book out if I can without disrupting too many things. I can pick that base up later. I'll organize the stuff that's in here later on. I just kind of brought the stuff down in the basement, and I just kind of brought the stuff down in the basement because I had to get the alien stuff in my bag for the next day. That's all right. Oh. Okay, there's another base there, but it's kind of far enough away. I don't have to really worry about it. So, this is a scenario that I have actually run before, not at a convention or anything like that, but I have run it before for like my in-person group. So, what is the name of the Talon's Lair? Steel Talon's Lair. There we go. So the basic premise is that like goblins have started like raiding like lower level, or some like the more like poor areas, destitute areas, more lawless areas of Absalom Station. And it's starting to get to the point where somebody needs to do something about it, but it's not affecting like the wealthy enough that they overly care. So the player characters are kind of hired to go do their thing, find where these goblins are, find out who's behind their sudden, more aggressive streak, and just sort of put an end to it. And I did run, so last year for Pathfinder, I ran the first scenario from the second edition playtest scenario booklet. I can't remember the name of it now, but it involved like the Star of Desna being stolen, sort of like a family heirloom type of thing. And it had a map similar to this size, and the players got through it relatively quickly. So I actually decided to add an extra encounter at the beginning with a little bit of role playing, where the characters had to kind of find where these goblins were. So one of the characters would have had underground contacts, and was able to sort of point, or it was able to make contact with like a low level mobster. Who was this little Yoski, so like the rat folk. So he was like this little rat person, but he was wearing like a fancy suit, and he had a voice modulator that made his voice sound more authoritative and booming than it actually is, because he's like a little small like rat person. And they sort of talked to him about what was going on and how it's affecting him, because like he's sort of in these more like slum-like areas. And eventually, like, it was revealed that some of the patrons in the bar were actually like goblins spying on their competition by putting on like these really cheap-looking wigs and like pretending to be passed out on tables. But you can see like their ears sticking out of like one of them, and like you can see that they're following people around as they mill about type of thing. So I had and I just put it away. I kind of wish I had kept it out. But I took the Cantina map from Starfinder First Edition, because one side was like this seedy dive bar, and basically the mobster was like, if you take out those goblins and prove that you're capable, and I'll tell you where you can find them, sort of thing. And so the fight broke out, and I rolled garbage the entire time. Like throughout the first encounter, this encounter, and even this encounter here. So the first like 3 out of I only did like these 2. I decided not to do the robot sentry there, just due to the fact that we were getting close on time in this one. But for the first like 3 encounters, I couldn't roll above like an 8, so I was just not hitting anybody. Even when I had like a decent attack bonus, like this sort of like a tiger-like cyclopean tiger creature that was stalking in this foliage stuff, like he had a pretty good attack bonus. I just couldn't roll enough to hit, so like I couldn't get anybody. But anyway, so the fight in the bar, went pretty well. The characters took out all the goblins. They were given the directions. I added an extra goblin to each of these areas here, so there were 2 goblins and 2 goblins. They fought 4 goblins in the first encounter, and I added a couple more goblins to this area here as well. So there were 5 goblins total, and I just sort of, like I said, increased hit points for pretty much everything. And so the players, there's like these opaque plastic sheets. They're not like force fields, they're not doors or anything. They're just these like opaque plastic sheets, and I rolled really bad for my stealth, and the players rolled really good for their perception. So it's like, well, you can see like the goblins' feet, kind of, because like the sheets don't go all the way down, or you can hear like them snickering because they're getting ready to ambush the players. And again, they just got completely obliterated. They did go into the pirate hideout, but they actually didn't fight the pirate. The pirate, was they actually like ended up just communicating with them, role playing with him, and they were able to calm him enough that like he gave them some information about some of the other areas that he knew about, which was basically just this reactor room, and that there's a creature that lives inside of the reactor that gets very hostile if you go in there. So the players actually didn't go into this room at all. They went back up this way into the fluid leaks, was sort of like the chemist lab or the little chemist shop or whatever it was. Technically it was a shop because there's like hologram that welcomes you. And they did take they did scoop up, or they did take some of the liquids with them, though nobody drank any of them, which kind of sucked. Like I was really looking forward to rolling on there's a random table, because pretty much every starter set has to have some sort of like minor thing where you can roll on a table for like random beneficial or negative effects. Like going back to like the 3rd edition adventure game, there was a statue that I think it was a statue It might have been just a pool of liquid that if you drank from it, like you rolled randomly on a table to see what effect you got. It just seems like it's almost a staple of like beginner scenarios that you never really see higher level versions of for whatever reason. But yeah, it was still kind of interesting. So they scooped up some liquid there. When they made their way to the hunting grounds, they did, again, I was rolling really awful. So they were able to spot the creature, this creature here, and the fight was actually pretty rough. I think I might have hit. Did I? I might have hit once with this guy, with this creature against the players there. But yeah, I was not rolling good at all. So to be fair, some of the players were rolling pretty bad as well. I felt awful because like I bought dice for everybody. Like everybody left that table with a set of dice that I got from EB Games. They were just a blue set of like 7 dice. And they also left with a copy of the pocket edition of the player core. So like when I run a game at a convention, especially now that I'm running, like I'm decided I'm sticking to things that are less, I don't want to say conventional, but they're less represented. Like instead of running like 5e like I did the first time, I decided again to go with like Starfinder. Like Pathfinder's pretty well known and pretty popular, but like Starfinder's kind of lesser known in the same sphere type of thing. And again with the Alien RPG, so I want the players to, if they have a good time, to be able to leave the table with the ability to like continue to play in like that game or something like that. So to have like that option. So last year with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I did the same thing. Everybody left the table with a copy of the player core book for like Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Same thing this year. They left with a copy of the Starfinder player core. So that said, one player rolled back-to-back. The first 2 rolls that he made with the brand new set of dice were back-to-back ones. And, like, a lot of the players were really struggling with those dice, and I felt awful. It's like, well, they're yours to take if you want to take them, sort of thing. Everybody did, but it was definitely... I definitely felt bad with how, like, poorly we were all rolling throughout the night. Although things did get better. I guess afternoon. But things, definitely did start to get better. The trap room, one of the players was hit by the laser trap, and then they were able to disable it and move on to the next room. This was one of my favorite rooms here, actually, because it had Sub-Commander Skriz. And, like, for the most part, like, the goblins are just sort of, like, fodder creatures and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily give them a ton of personality. Like, especially, like, I don't do voices. I can't do voices. Like, I lose my voice really easily, and trying to alter it to sound like something else can be a really bad way for that to happen. And again, like, Saturday was packed. Like, they had to add a bunch of extra tables because there were so many people there running stuff. And I was in, like, the main room area. Like, for my second game, I was tucked away in a little nook. That's, right off of the main area, but it's still kind of, in its own little space. But for Saturday, I was having to, like, project and compete with everything. So, I didn't do a ton of role-playing, but Sub-Commander Skriz was just, the name was silly, and I decided that he was really going to lean into the fact that he was Sub-Commander, and that nobody else was, and the players, when they started showing how effective they were, he tried to offer them a position in his organization. So there's plenty of room for advancement up to like sub commander, but anything beyond that's taken. And the player, like one of the players, was like, oh yeah, maybe I'll do that, but he kept killing Sub Commander Skriz's minions. So, like, Sub-Commander Skriz doubted that, this person was being genuine to him about his interest in joining Sub-Commander Skriz. And I just like saying Sub-Commander Skriz. I don't know why. I just enjoy saying it. So they eventually ended up taking him out. I had 2 more goblins that were using, like, these 2 were using melee attacks. These ones up here were using, like, ranged weaponry. And, the 2 that were using, like, the ranged attacks, they ended up fleeing and running up the hallway here where the robot was. But at this point, like, the characters took some pretty heavy damage from Sub-Commander Skriz and his allies. So they took time to, like, heal up and kind of, use, like, the medicine skill and the the Mystic used like the heal spell a little bit. And so what they heard was the sounds of laser fire and goblins screeching, and then suddenly like something crashing to the ground, like a metallic crash sound, and like silence. So like the goblins and the sentry bot like killed each other. And then we went into the battle with the mechanical dragon here, Steel Talon. I did increase his hit points, and he did have like his vulnerabilities, and like he was malfunctioning. He's a malfunctioning robot. Like he was thrown out in this junk pile, but he sort of got reactivated. And like the idea is that he's sort of glitching out, and the players would kind of notice that. Like they would see like sparks kind of shooting off. Servos would whine and grind at times, and his movements would be kind of like jittery type of thing. But he did hit the players with a pretty nasty breath weapon, which I did increase the dice for. Just to make it seem, a little more like scary and deadly. And again, like the Mystic had, heal spells and stuff left. So, they had the ability to heal through that damage. And some of the players got knocked unconscious, but at the end of the day, they were able to defeat Steel Talon. One player actually hit with a critical, and Steel Talon takes an extra 50% damage from critical hits. So he got hit by, I think it was the Solaren. And he rolled pretty high on his die. Like it was a D8 plus 4, plus 1 fire. And in Pathfinder Starfinder, everything doubles, right? So so that ended up being like, I think he rolled this. I think he rolled max. Like I think he rolled 8. So it was 24 points, 26 points, and then did another 13 on top of that because of the vulnerability. So most of his hit points were gone from that one attack. So it was a pretty brutal, it was a quick but brutal fight. And and that was it. Sort of at the end of the scenario, none of the players ended up dying or anything. So like the ones that were, unconscious or dying, they were stabilized and they were fine at the end of the encounter, at the end of the scenario. And the group had a pretty good time. Like I think overall, it was a fun group to play with. And actually, funnily enough, because when it comes to this stuff, like I always assume that I'll have to spend at least 20 to 30 minutes explaining the rules before we get into the actual game itself. But they had played some Pathfinder 2nd Edition at a table run by a friend of mine that I went to school with. And so they started, like, he threw the name out there. It's like, oh yeah, I went to high school with them, right? And at the time, sort of the last person I thought would be into like tabletop RPGs, but it's really cool that he is. So anyway, so they already knew like the Pathfinder system fairly decently, but I still had like the player aid card from the beginner box for Pathfinder 2e with the tokens they could use for each of the 3 actions and then the reaction and stuff like that. But it was a good time. It was actually a really, really good time, and the players seemed to enjoy themselves. I looked forward to seeing them all like the next day for Alien. So, it ended up being like a pretty positive experience, which was great. And then for the Alien game, like I said, I just ran the starter set here. Whoop. And I had purchased multiple extra starter sets from the Kickstarter because it's like, well, I'm probably going to run this at a con. All right, most likely at King Kong. King Kong. It's hard for me to say without adding the G sound, just like out of like decades of knowing who King Kong is and like King Kong. It's really hard to stop at the end sound. But I had some extras. I didn't have quite enough. And I did have a friend who expressed an interest in trying the Alien game if he could make it on Sunday. So I had 4 players for the sign up. 2 to 4 players was the group size, but in the event that like this other friend showed up, like I had the ability to support up to 5, or I wanted the ability to support up to 5. So I had 3 starter sets. I had 3 extra starter sets, so I ordered 2 from Free League, and there ended up being an issue. Like I placed the order like weeks before, and like no update, no shipping or anything like that, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And as it turns out, I completed the order through the shop app, And basically, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but I'll just sort of retouch on it here. But basically, it has address fields that didn't apply to me, right? Like, I don't have a rural route number, I don't have a PO box number, or anything like that. So those fields were just left blank. But the app would fill them out as saying the word nil or null. I think it was null. So those extra things added in to those fields kind of created an issue with their system, and then, like, just nothing got shipped out. So they did offer to ship, like, they correct themselves, they're going to ship it out. They resubmitted the order, but unfortunately, the first one, when they resubmitted it, they only submitted a single starter set, and their customer service is great. Like, Freely's customer service has really always been fantastic, but I don't like to, like, bug. I guess, I don't know. Maybe it's the Canadian in me. And I sent a message back. It was like, I really appreciate that you got that shipped out, and I really hate to be a bother, but the original order was for 2. So they shipped out the other one separately. But I was worried about them not getting here in time, because we only had about a week and a half for the con, and sometimes stuff gets here like within a couple of days, and sometimes it takes like 2-3 weeks. So I had to look for alternatives. I went to Harry Tarantula, so that's another game store in Toronto. Whenever I go to Toronto, like, that's one of the stores I like to go to, along with 401 Games. 401 Games didn't have any starter sets, but Harry Tarantula had 4 left. So I was like, okay, I ordered 2, so I could have a total of 5, and I knew that they would get there because I selected the slightly more expensive option, which would get them to me in 2 to 3 business days. So anyway, I got those from Harry Tarantula, a couple days later, and the week before the con, Monday, the first starter set from Free League arrived, and then Thursday, the second one showed up. So it was like, so I still have more than I need. Like, I still have 3 sealed starter sets that I'm looking at, which is almost enough to run at a con again, right? And that's in addition to, like, the sealed one that I already have just from my own personal collection. So I'm thinking not next year, but maybe in another year to come, I'll probably do another Alien game, or if there's another con that I can go to. And I'll talk about another con here in a moment, not by name, but an experience that I had where I was going to be running some games that I could have used those extra sets for, but we'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, so the Alien game was for 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. And the Starfinder game was for 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. This was 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sunday. Now, Saturday, I had some things that I wanted to sell. They have, like, a seller's table that you can set up for. They have, like, it was a 3-hour period where, like, you don't have to, but there's different, like, pricing that you can do for each of those 3. There's, like, the first hour is like, I would love to get this for it. The next hour is like, I would still be happy with this number. And then the third hour is basically like, I really don't want to take this home, so I'll put this price here. I had 8 things that I took with me. There's things that I had doubles of through, like, issues with shipping errors, or, like, just other things where it's like I have duplicates of stuff that I don't need duplicates of. And so I took these things with me. And I had actually offered these things to Noble Knight, in addition to a couple of other things. And I don't know if I should tell the story or not, because, like, I do buy stuff from Noble Knight. Like, I actually got an order from them just a couple of days ago. So I still think that they're an absolutely, worthwhile service, but I will never send stuff to them. I had set up, like, quite a few things that I was willing to send into them. And, like, they're listing, like, they would list it at Mint. And I know that because, like, one of the things that I ordered, they listed at Mint, and it had tape on it, like, to fix some, I don't know if it was like a little minor tear or something like that. But anyway, but everything was, like, stuff was sealed, like, fully sealed inside of, like, cellophane, or the books were, like, unopened, right? Because I had doubles of them. So, going on their website, off of their prices, if they sold everything, they would make like $600. And so I was like, okay, I know how I would handle that if I had a business where I took in used stuff. And so like I would offer like probably 50% for cash of what I could make for it. Although my prices would be a lot lower than what they were selling their stuff at. And I'd probably offer like 60 to 70% store credit. But anyway, so I send this stuff in, like this list in, and they come back to me. It's like, well, we'll do this for like $60 cash or $70 credit. So 10% of what they would sell the stuff at, because like I said, I knew it would all be listed at Mint. So I didn't even respond to the email. I made more selling less than half of the items that I was going to send into to Noble Knight at this con than that. So anyway, but weirdly enough, like the things that I thought would sell like pretty well were the things that didn't, and the things that I didn't think I'd have like a hope in hell of selling were the things that went. So it was kind of weird. Like I had a Symbaroum book. So I had an extra Monster Codex, and I had for the 5e Ruins of Symbaroum, I had an extra Bestiary, and I thought the Bestiary might sell pretty well. And it was one of the things that did sell, but I was like, "There's no way I'm selling that Symbaroum, Monster Codex book, right?" Like, it felt like such an obscure RPG. Like, who out there has Symbaroum in Kentville, Nova Scotia, right? But that was one of the first things that sold, actually, because I kind of kept an eye on the thing. And so I ended up selling that. I ended up selling a couple of starter sets that I had extras of. One of which I thought it would sell, in all fairness, but the other one's like, I doubt that's going to go. But it did. And I sold the 2 Symbaroum books and the 2 starter sets, and I came back with some things that I kind of wish it sold. Like, strangely enough, the Pathfinder stuff didn't sell at all. I had 2 Pathfinder books, and I had the Bestiary battle cards, because I had an extra copy of that's sealed up. And I really thought, I thought the books would sell. I didn't know if the battle cards would sell, even though they are like full stat cards and everything. But it was kind of an interesting experience. So I had to be there early for that, because like you had to get that stuff in pretty much first thing in the morning. And then once I'm there, like I'm not dropping the stuff off and then going home and then coming back, right? So I was there for quite a while on Saturday, and I was pretty burnt out. And we were in the middle of a heat wave, we were at the end of a heat wave, I guess. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday were like heat warning days, and Thursday was brutal. Friday was slightly less brutal, but still rough. Like, I'm glad my dog pooped in the morning on Friday, so that I could just take him out. If he had to go out, we just took him out for a quick pee, and then came back in. And still took him for like a full walk later on, but just not as soon as we would have if he hadn't done his business. Because he gets hot easily, like he gets overheated. We actually do have him buzzed right down for the summer. But he does get warm really easily, so I just wanted to avoid taking him out as much as possible, type of thing. So anyway, we're getting off subject. So anyway, for Sunday's game, it was first thing in the morning. I was exhausted. I actually talked to my buddy. It's like, because we were going to get there at a certain time. It's like, can we get a little bit earlier? Because like I'm going to need an energy drink, and I get the coffee flavored ones. So we picked up some drinks and stuff like that, and set everything up. And again, one of the players couldn't make it because he was just too worn out, which I understood. But somebody else from the same kind of group was interested in playing, so like my table was still full. And this game was a ton of fun. Like, we had a really great time running this. It only took about 2.5 hours, just the way that the places that they went to, the decisions that they made, kind of took them through the scenario really quickly. Like, kind of so quickly that a lot of them didn't really have a ton of time to enact their personal agendas. But it was just sort of the nature of the beast. One of the players, the one that kind of substituted in, had to leave by a certain time. Needed to have a meal at a certain point. And so we were able to finish everything right before his alarm went off, which was awesome. The other thing is that like throughout the weekend they had like raffles for games, and they had basically like a thing where like if you signed up to play certain games that were donated, you could actually end up winning them at the on Sunday. So that took like if we hadn't finished when we did, I don't know if we would have really gotten through the full scenario because the announcements and stuff took almost an hour, and I wasn't going to be talking over that or running the game over that because like people were had a vested interest in like how these giveaways were shaping up. So anyway, I did with the Alien one. I did have like extra sets of dice that I took, and the idea was I was going to give them the starter sets at the end of the session, but like everybody showed up with a dice tray, and it's like, okay, you know what? It was just hard to get like the dice around the table, so it's like don't read the scenario, right? Or don't look at the maps, but I'll give you this stuff now, all right? And so each player that was there walked away with the starter set, and I do have an extra one again for the player who couldn't make it. I sent him a message on Facebook. It's like there is a starter set here for you. This is where if you're going to be in the area that I live, let me know and I'll give you my address. But they took the dice out of them, and again, like they really enjoyed the game, like the Alien system, like with the stress mechanics and just the overall like desperate tone of the game. It went really, really well. So they were going through the colony, and again they just sort of chose the rooms where stuff happened, and again my rolls were pretty garbage, so everybody survived. A couple of the players were injured and had taken some serious damage. The android had to get his lag servos repaired, and one of the other characters was like broken and had to be like patched back up to the point where like he only had a single health. But yeah, I was just rolling really bad with so many of these dice rolls. Like the couple of times I had instant kill attacks that I had generated on the table. And it's like, roll 8d6, and if you, base damage 1, and if you do a single point of damage to the target, then they suffer this critical injury and they're killed. So, I'd roll like 8 or 10d6 and not roll a single 6. And I was like, as soon as the dice hit the table, my hands went up, and it's like, okay, I need somebody to look at this just so I'm not, like, taking it easy on you guys. And they looked and saw the dice, none of them had succeeded. So, but again, it was a good time. It gave me a chance to actually run the starter set scenario, which was really good. So, like, the way that they had the scenario structured is Act 1 was them arriving back at the colony up until after their first encounter with the xenomorph, which happened. So they got back in, they explored a couple of the storage rooms, they found a couple of scavenged items, and then they made their way to the Al Simpson's office. And it was there that they found like one of the Weyland-Yutani scientists had been killed, but this was in a room where there was an encounter with a xenomorph. So they had only gone through a couple of rooms, and then they ended up, encountering the xenomorph. So they didn't really get a chance to do much for Act 1 for their like personal agendas, and then Act 2 ended when they made contact with the second scientist, who had a functional key card that would allow them to take the shuttle, the Weyland-Yutani corporate shuttle, that these scientists had used to arrive shortly after the Russ Jordan was face-hugged. So that was the end of the second act, which again they did pretty quickly because they made contact with her in Al Simpson's office, and their plan was to go right to her, sort of thing. They did encounter another xenomorph along the way. They did use their motion tracker. So I set up like pings using the tokens in here. In the starter set, like the tokens, one side has what the thing is, right? And then the other side is just sort of this ping. I did make the mistake of using the same one for the xenomorph. I think I used H. And I just had that token there. So instead of like using a different letter, I just used the same one. And one of the players picked up on it. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, so they picked that up. They picked up a few other pings, including like there was some supposed to be some chest bursters, but so the missing token was actually a chest burster token and not a facehugger token. So there's a missing chest burster. So I had to churn one of the chest bursters into a facehugger because I just didn't have the proper token for it. But it was in rooms that they decided not to go in because like the fight with the xenomorph went really rough on them. So they made their way right to Theodora Comiskey. Was it Comiskey? Whoever the second one, the one that they ended up like rescuing. I think it was Comiskey. And then from there, like they received a call from the casino. They went to the casino. They were able to rescue the people there on the way. And then the casino has an exit that goes right outside of the colony. So they basically left from the tavern and ran towards the shuttle. And this is where we're starting to get a little crunched for time. So I just kind of narrated what happened after that. I would have played through it if we had a bit more time, but we kind of didn't. So like one of the players really wanted to use a seismic charge, but like it kept being situations where it was really bad to try to do so. So when they were running out of the casino, there was like a band of xenomorphs behind them, kind of like chasing after them. So that's when I just like in a narrative sense had them use the charge, and then they get into the shuttlecraft. It takes off. One of the players was incapacitated in the fight with the xenomorph in the tavern. But he wanted to, they wanted to secure a specimen. The scientists had like a facehugger egg that had been frozen that they wanted to bring back with them. And one of the other players was like, okay, that's not coming with us, and like destroyed the egg. So the broken character is like, okay, well, he was able to just reveal sort of like their things. Ended up like shooting at the person who destroyed the egg, but missed horribly. And then, from there, like somebody that wanted to secure a sample, actually, I think it was the same person because despite that, like they did heal him up and get him back up. But then he was the one that like kind of rolled randomly see who would open up the door to the room that had several ovomorphs in it, and so he was face hugged, and it's like, well, the good news is that you did secure a sample. It's just inside of you. Type of thing, but it ended up going really, really well. I really enjoyed, sort of playing through and running through the starter set there. It was definitely a lot of fun. I do wish that the starter set rule booklet was a little bit more comprehensive, just due to the fact that, like, it's designed really only to be used with that starter set. I think you could still use it for other box set scenarios, although Rapture Protocol, for example, does mention the core rulebook. So I did sort of show them what the core rulebook looked like. I showed them what the mini set looked like for the Rapture Protocol, just to kind of get an idea of like the other products. And the Free League is having a summer sale on right now. But yeah, the Alien game went over really, like the Starfighter game the players really enjoyed, but the Alien game was a big hit. Like they were really happy with that. Some other people were kind of milling about the convention, and they saw like the setup, and they kind of stuck around for a little bit to sort of see how things were going, type of thing. But like I said, then we got into those like game winner giveaway announcements and stuff like that, which took almost an hour of time, maybe a little bit less than that. But they started at 1, and we ended the scenario around 20-1. And they started at they started before that because like they let people know that the announcements were coming up, and they started I think they started about 10 minutes early, but it was probably about 1:40 by the time they finished. So it was about 50 minutes of like the giveaways and stuff like that, because I had to announce things and do all the stuff. They went through everything individually, and so it was. I'm glad that it finished early. Right, for a couple of reasons, but I'm glad that we were able to get through the entire scenario before those announcements, because I would have hated to have had the game broken up by them, right? Like, because like we could have gone for another 20 minutes or so after the announcements were over, but like if we had to stop and then wait throughout all that and then try to get back into it, I think something kind of would have been lost. Like the tension, I think, would have been lost in that situation. So it did go really well, and like everybody was really happy with this. Like they had their own starter set to take back, and So I think one of the players was already looking at like the core rulebook online and ordering. I think he ordered it from Amazon or was going to order it. Free League also I think has it on sale. I think, or maybe not. I'd have to check. They do have their summer sale going on right now. Um, and he was also looking at like a dice tray and stuff like that. So I think at least one of them is going to like really get into that. And I think he's the one that tends to run games more for that group than anybody else in it. So so it was cool to see stuff like that. Like when you walk away from something and somebody's really enthusiastic about like the game that you just ran, like that was a really cool feeling, and it was a really fun time. And so I came home, and for like Monday, my voice was in and out sort of thing, or I didn't want to talk too much if I could avoid it. It felt like a little raspy, or I was just constantly feeling like I had to clear my throat type of thing. Yesterday was about the same, so I'm recording this on Wednesday. And but yeah, so Tuesday I was looking at their sale, and they had a couple of the starter sets that were like normally like I think they're 80% off because they were normally like $40 and they're selling them for 17. That might be US dollars, but still, that's a pretty good savings. So what I decided to go with so they had the Vossen starter set for like $17. So I ordered four of those, and I decided to go with Lord of the Rings 5e. And I ordered four of those starter sets. I was considering doing the One Ring, but again, in a con setting, I think like going through the One Ring stuff, like their mechanics might be a little bit more involved than what I want to get into in a convention. But with the Lord of the Rings 5e starter set, I think that's still going to be fine. Like, because it is a 5e, but it's not like it's not the D&D. It's not D&D. It's still like the Lord of the Rings role playing game. So I ordered four of those sets, and I ordered four of the Vossen sets. And the idea is that next year, those will be the two games that I run. And I was really strongly moving towards just running one game next year, like running a game on Saturday and then just going in on Sunday to just like to hang out sort of thing. Because one of my friends runs a minis game on Sunday. So I was like, well, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to be able to play that because we always end up getting scheduled around the same time. But anyway, but I was looking at these two, and like the prices are so good that I just decided to say, no, I'll get the two. I might still decide to only run one next year, but I could always save the other one for a future event. So now, speaking of other like cons, I think King Con is the only one I'm going to run stuff for. This year, I ended up getting an email from one of the organizers for King Con. It wasn't sent to just me specifically. It was sent out to all the people that like to run games there. But basically, there's another convention taking place later on in the year, somewhere else in the province. And they were looking for people to run games other than like their ones that they had organized for. So they wanted to have like other systems represented and things like that. So I sent an email to the person that would be the contact for that convention, and this is a little while ago. But I was like, my name is Dave. Like, I would love to run games, at your con. These are the ones that I would kind of be looking to run. And it had like the list was like Alien, Dragonbane, Dragon Age, Starfinder, I think was one of them, and Pathfinder 2e. So like these are the games that I'd be willing to run, because they are different from the one that you like are mostly running at your convention in like an organized setting. But like these are the games that I could run, and I would absolutely love to. Like I would love to be a part of your convention. So this was around the time that the missus got back from her European business trip, and we ended up getting sick. And for a few days, I was actually really sick. And so I didn't realize that I had gotten an email back from the person. Because I just wasn't feeling good and just wasn't really checking emails. And I was getting enough emails sent to me that it got pushed so far down the page that I didn't see it. But his response was, that'd be great. We'd love to have you. We are doing something like this upcoming weekend if you're interested in just like coming and seeing sort of what we do. But there was nothing in that email that said like that your ability to participate is solely dependent on you attending this other event. Like, it was just like I said in my email, I would love to run games for you. His acknowledgement was that would be great, but then he also offered this other thing that I couldn't go to anyway because I was sick. So I missed that email, and then I was kind of wondering, like, but like it's not until the fall, so I wasn't really worried about hearing back right away anyway. And anyway, at one point I just got an email. It's like, well, you don't have to do anything for us. We got everything filled up, right? And it was like, oh, okay, well, but and if he had just said that, cool, right? Like nothing to worry about there. But there was a little thing added on. It's like, it didn't seem like you were overly willing to, participate, so or overly interested in participating. I sent you an email and you didn't respond to it at all, type of thing. And so we just decided to, fill it with other people. It was like that felt like an unnecessary addition to the email. If you would have just said, I appreciate, your willingness, but we got everything filled, so, but thank you. Right? That's all you had to send. But they ended up sending like, yeah, we sent you an email, you didn't respond, so you just didn't seem overly, interested in doing it. Even though my initial email was, I would love to run some games at your con. Right, so I don't know what else you needed beyond that. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't see an email. Right, so I went back and I looked. It's like, oh, okay. Like I'm just, I apologize. I was really sick the week that you sent that email. I just ended up missing it. I apologize, but nothing in the email felt like it was a situation where if I didn't respond to it, that it meant that I wasn't interested in the con, right? Like, and the first thing that was his response was acknowledging my interest in running games. All that was in that email after that was like, hey, we're also doing something this weekend if you want to come and see kind of how we set things up. So, I mean, my response would have been, like, I wouldn't have been able to make it that weekend anyway. Like, even if I was not sick, there were other things going on that, like I don't want to get into too much, but I didn't like the way that the tone of the dismissiveness of like, well, you didn't seem that interested. And even when I explained the situation, instead of like being like, oh, I'm sorry, but we are filled, maybe next year, like instead of like opening the door for like a future event, I just never got anything back from him. So I was like, you know what? I have no interest in that con whatsoever. It's not the first time something like that's kind of happened to me, where I feel like I kind of got dicked around. Like, I'm sorry that I didn't see the person's email. But again, it wasn't like, if you don't respond, then, I know that you're not interested. Like, there's nothing about that. It was just, thank you. It would be great to, thank you for your interest. And if you want to come check out this thing, it's happening. Like, that's all it was. So to go from that to be like, well, you didn't show any interest in anything. Like, you should have tried harder. Just put an absolutely sour taste in my mouth. So, like, a couple of days ago, a buddy in one of our pay-per-view group message is like, hey, are you going to go to this con, like, in blah, blah, blah month? And it's like, absolutely not, right? Like, I'm not going to have anything to do with that ever again. I put out the offer, and I did not like the attitude of the person that was organizing it. So no, like, I hope their con does well. Like, it seems like it will. It's kind of in an area that is smaller than the town that King Con was in. There's not like any hotels in the area, so I don't know how much they'll be able to do. But I hope it goes well. Like, I really do, because I want the conventions to do well, even if I personally will not be attending them or having anything to do with them. Like, that doesn't mean other people shouldn't. But I had something similar happen a few years, like when I ran games at HalCon. That same year, somebody reached out to me about running games at this other smaller sort of convention, which is not really focused around gaming. It's all kinds of like different like geek culture stuff. But they did want to have some gaming table set up. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. Like, this is what I can run. And they're like, okay, awesome. So, like, you can set up a table on Saturday, but Friday is when the thing opens. Just come down Friday and you'll get your weekend pass. I was like, okay, cool. So I get there on Friday, and, it's a pretty big line to get stuff. And it's like, hi, this is my name. I'm, supposed to be volunteering tomorrow. I was told to come and get, like, the weekend pass. And they're like, well, we don't have any passes for anybody. It's like, okay. Not even like, so they're like, well, you can buy a pass for like the weekend, or you can buy a pass for tomorrow. And if you're running a game, then you'll get like $5 off or something like that. I was like, so I was, again, like, I was told to come and get the pass, that it would be there. It was a weekend pass that I could pick up. And now you're telling me that not only was that not the case, but I'd have to pay pay my way in to volunteer to run something at your con. So I was like, no, I just went home. So I don't know what it is with some of the, like, I don't know, like, I've had some bad experiences, still to the point where, like, yeah, I think King Con is the only place that I've actually had a positive experience running games at. So that's the only one I'm going to run games at. Like, I'm not going to volunteer for other people's stuff anymore. I tried, and I got like a really pissy message back because, I didn't see an email when I was going through 102.7 degree fever. Sorry, I guess, but them's the break sort of thing. But yeah, the King Con was a really good experience. It was I had a lot more fun this year than last year. So I'm actually really looking forward to next year. Like I said, I have a couple things picked up that I'm going to look to run there. And I'm just looking at this recording. I've been rambling for an hour, so I think we're going to cut it off here. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about it because I don't know if I'll get a chance to really talk about it with anybody else. The whole point of this channel initially was to be able just to talk about role-playing stuff because I moved away and didn't have people to talk to about this sort of stuff. So this kind of falls back into that category. Like, I don't know how much I'll be able to talk about the con with, like, anybody else. So there we go. Let me know in the comments below. If you, like, do you have any, like, local cons in your area? Do you run games at them, or have you played games at them? Sort of thing. Like, which do you prefer? Like, smaller conventions, smaller local conventions, or some of like the bigger ones. Like this year's HalCon, I am going to be going to because Jonathan Frakes is going to be there, and I want to get Commander Riker's autograph. I bought an action figure on card from the '90s for him to sign, but like I hate how busy it is there, like how crowded it is there. So I probably will be spending a lot of time at that one. But like, do you prefer small local cons or like the bigger ones with like the celebrities and all that stuff? Let me know that in the comments below. But yeah, it was a great time, and I'm looking forward to next year. And I've learned my lesson. I'm only going to run stuff at the place where I had a good experience. So anyway, thank you all so very much for your time. I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.